every morning with drive. Being on the grind, know I had to survive. We had to win. Started from the dirt and the rubble. I had to be the needle that was popping your bubble.
Hello and welcome into the Rookie Prospect Profile Series. This is a Zilla Fantasy Elite production. Today we're going to be looking at tight end Devin Culp within the tight end machine learning models. He was a late round draft pick. Can he find his way into your fantasy lineups? Our machine learning models hold the answers. Let's get into it. Devin Culp comes in as pick number 246 overall, 7th round draft pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He played college football for the Washington Huskies and comes in at 6'4", 237 pounds. So a little bit smaller of a tight end prospect here, but at that 6'3", 237 pounds. He ran a 4.47 in the 40-yard dash, which is pretty solid. Actually, in my database, I have him in at 231 pounds, running that 4.47. So he might end up doing a little better in this particular model, as we know that speed score is pretty important. So let's go take a peek at all of his years and see where he stands. And surprisingly, he's kind of at the halfway part here in terms of the tight end models that we're looking at. All 12 of the drafted ones are going to be looked at in this particular draft season. So he is halfway here at 3.23 and 3.15 for his mean and median, maximum output at 7.75. Let's go look at historical comps. Who was hitting those 3 to 3.5 and 7.75 fantasy point per game ranges in their rookie season? All of these tight ends were between 3.03 and 3.5 fantasy points per game. Jake Ferguson, Daniel Brown, Crockett Gilmore, Jeremy Sprinkle, Levine Tiolo, Tyler Conklin, Will Mallory, Elijah Higgins, Tommy Tremble, Tegan Quatoriano, Jarrell Adams, Dalton Schultz, and Jonnu Smith. Got a mixed match of a bunch of people who didn't matter, but then we got guys like Jake Ferguson, Crockett Gilmore, Dalton Schultz, Jonnu Smith, who did have some sort of fantasy relevant or some pretty solid seasons in there at times. So kind of interesting there, seeing that for his mean and median. Maximum output at 7.75. If he absolutely blows it out of the water with the Bucs, he's looking in between O.J. Howard and Albert Okwuegbunam in their rookie seasons. George Kittle, Zach Ertz, Adam Shaheen, all at 7.1. Will Tye at 8 fantasy points per game. And then Chris Herndon and Ian Thomas at 8.1, kind of all within that range. So interesting prospect so far here in year one. What do we see going into year two? Yeah, unfortunately, we see him take a step back here. He's now the 10th best mean and median in the class at 2.7 and 2.5 fantasy points per game. But the interesting thing is, I think with that speed score, we do see that maximum output at 10.34, 5th best in the class for year two. Let's go look at historical context, which tight ends in the last 11 draft classes were hovering around that 2.5 to 2.7 fantasy point per game range. And these are the tight ends, all between 2.34 and 2.8. Connor Hayward, Jay Sternberger, Bronson Kafusi, Brevin Jordan, CJ Fedorowicz, Tyler Croft, Greg Dulcich, Trey Burton, and Ryan Griffin. Not too exciting there, not to be unexpected with the 10th ranked one in the class. That maximum, you can kind of see on the graph on the bottom left there, see quite a few of them in between about 5 and 8 fantasy points per game. And we get a few very small ones there with him maxing out at 10.34 if he can have all the cards fall his way. That's in between Noah Fant and Jake Ferguson in their second season. So we see that Jake Ferguson in his max range of outcomes potentially, and then Noah Fant 9.95. We know he was super athletic coming out. Richard Rodgers, Crockett Gilmore just below that, and Hunter Henry, Trey McBride just above that particular range. Let's get into year three, see if we see any more interesting facts from him. And we do see him take a jump up to 4.2 and 3.92 fantasy points per game, 7th best in the class. And again, that maximum output 11.05 is the 5th best in the class. Minimum output at 0.57. This is really looking like a guy based off of his profile that's got the low floor, high ceiling, which is more of what we're chasing with these late round draft picks. versus the high floor, low ceiling. We want those guys with the ceiling outputs that have a chance to really give us a boost if they do hit. Let's go look at historical comps on year 3 tight ends. Who is hitting that 4 to 4.5 fantasy point per game range? All these guys were between 3.8 and 4.4 fantasy points per game. Austin Safarian-Jenkins, Will Dissly, Chris Gregg, Will Tye, Durham Smythe, Colby Parkinson, Timothy Wright, Noah Gray, Crockett Gilmore, Lawrence Cager, and Michael Rivera. Pretty uninspiring list there, but that maximum output at 11.05, if he hits his ceiling, it looks like he's going to smash here. 11.05 in historical context is getting almost inside the top 10 of the last 11 draft classes for tight ends in their 3rd season. So Dawson Knox was just below that at 10.94. And just above that was Eric Ebron at number 10 overall in the last 11 draft classes at 11.1. Cameron Brayton, Zach Ertz at 11.4. Travis Kelce at 11.6. And Mike Gesicki at 10.62. Dallas Goedert 10.58. And then a bump down to Austin Hooper at 10.1 in his 3rd season. Some pretty interesting names there. If he can hit his ceiling, does seem like he does have that in his range of outcomes. Let's get into year 4, see if we see anything different. And again, we see this huge tailing edge down there on the higher end side for him, basically saying it's expecting him to be more kind of in the bottom, 25th percentile range, but he's got a lot of outs here to become somewhat fantasy relevant going into, his 75th, 90th percentile outcomes here. So kind of an interesting profile. Probably not somebody I'm going to want in year 1, but if we see any sort of flashes in year 1, this is a guy that I'm going to be interested in picking up just based off the maximum outputs that we've seen from him so far. And kind of this, low floor, high ceiling type of profile. Let's get into those historical comps in the last 11 draft classes. Who's hovering between about 3.75 and 4.5 fantasy points per game. Quite a few of them in that particular range. Between 3.7 and 4.5, we have Max Williams, Nick Boyle, Seth DeValve, Logan Thomas, Marquise Gray, Levine Tiolo, Luke Wilson, David Njoku, Durham Smythe, Jacob Hollister, Matt Lacoste, Michael Rivera, Ben Broniker, Josh Hill, and Nick O'Leary. Really about only one fantasy relevant person there, and David Njoku, even despite the bump up in the mean and median here for him in year 4. That maximum output, though, at 12.61, that's pretty solid. We've seen a bunch of those solid, maximum outputs into year 4, which is interesting enough because TJ Hawkinson was at 12.67 in his 4th season, which is the 7th best in the last 11 draft classes. Just above him, Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce at 13.1, 13.8 respectively. And then a little bit below that, Tyler Eifert and Hunter Henry at 12.3, Dalton Schultz 12.28, and a bump down to Tyler Higbee at 11.5 in his 4th season. So quite the interesting profile here for the last drafted tight end and the final tight end in our series here for the rookie machine learning models of 2024 draft season. That's going to do it for today's rookie prospect profile on Devin Culp, some guy that I'm going to keep my eye on in case I would not mind picking him up if he shows some flashes. This is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.